I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge.
That's a real humble prayer. Muscleman Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan the Barbarian, one of 4 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Sneak Previews. And across the aisle from me, Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And this is Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. In addition to Conan the Barbarian, we'll also be reviewing Partners, a comedy about 2 cops, one straight, Ryan O'Neal, one gay, John Hurt. He's trying to solve a series of homosexual murders. Also, Christiane F, a realistic drama about young people addicted to heroin in West Germany. But first, Roger begins with The Sword and the Sorcerer.
I think I ought to start by saying this is not the same movie as Conan the Barbarian. Some of these movies begin to look a lot alike. They say that every time one Hollywood genre bites the dust, another one's resurrected to take its place. For example, they're not making any westerns in Hollywood anymore, but suddenly they are sure making a lot of sword fight movies. And the latest one is The Sword and the Sorcerer. It's more than the classic sword fight costume historical epic, though. It's heavier on pure fantasy, and it takes place in the dim mists of prehistory, sometime between the creation of the universe and the death of King Arthur. It gives itself a lot of time. Right. The movie is about how a villain named Cromwell, not Oliver Cromwell, another Cromwell, wants to control the kingdom, but is constantly defeated by his enemies until he enlists the services of an ancient sorcerer named Zuzia. And in this scene, Cromwell calls on a mistress of black magic to resurrect the sorcerer.
Get on with it, witch!
Things were a lot more exciting in the old days than they are. Wouldn't you like to see a sword fight movie where they sit around saying, gee, it's been a slow day, nothing much happened, no rituals, no appearances by any sorcerers or anything, just, you know, one damn thing after another. Movies wall-to-wall with spectacular images like that, but they don't seem to be representing anything. They're just there for decoration. Meanwhile, the plot unwinds rather predictably. Cromwell, aided by the sorcerer, engages in a final battle with the king's soldiers, and after defeating them, he tries to force the queen to declare him king.
Henry, come back! Henry! You... No, 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 no!
spare your daughter if you officially proclaim me king. Pull it out! Malia, you fool!
That's a great sword. Later on in the movie, it turns out it can project its blades.
Don't tell everything.
I won't tell everything, but this sword could have been
special.
designed by the same guy. Q, was it, on James Bond, who
Right.
invented all of his gimmicks?
Very good.
Well, that scene was a great-looking scene, too. Indeed, The Sword and the Sorcerer is a great-looking film. And I liked watching every frame of it, but I liked watching each frame a lot more, in fact, than I enjoyed having to watch the whole movie. Why is that? Because the movie cares a lot more about its visual effects than it does about establishing interesting characters or making any sense. The movie has the usual assortment of Sword and Sorcerer, S&S ingredients, damsels in distress, heroic young knights, exploding magic spells, torture dungeons, poisonous snakes. To tell you the absolute truth, though, Gene, half of the time, I couldn't figure out what was supposed to be happening in this movie, and I don't think some of the characters were very sure either.
Well, I absolutely enjoyed the film.
You did?
Well, yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, those special effects were surprising. It takes a lot these days, I think, to surprise either one of us or dazzle us. Those special effects did. That wall of faces was kind of wild. I thought it was Cornball, the sword that does all the tricks. I found the film, though, to be redeemed by the one thing that can redeem every tired genre, every kind of movie that's tired. And certainly this, I have no interest in seeing people walking around in sword fights. But this film, I think, had a sense of humor to it. A lot of the characters say funny things, just like the humor that I think revitalized the action picture like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think the sense of humor in this film makes it a lot better than the average kind of picture.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was a much better movie, though.
I
because
agree.
I think that Raiders of the Lost Ark really began with the characters. Began with the characters and added the special effects.
These
I have a
characters-
feeling that some of these movies, like Sword and the Sorcerer, begin with the production designer, the art design, the special effects guy, the makeup guy. They get everything ready, then they plug in the characters. Unless the movie is about something, I enjoyed it. I would give it a close miss, but
All
still,
right.
I just can't care that much about it.
Well, there's no question. Raiders is a better picture. I don't think this is that bad. Our next movie is Partners, and it is that bad. It's a comedy about a couple of cops, one straight and one gay, trying to solve a series of homosexual murders. And the first question I have, is a series of homosexual murders a suitable subject for comedy? It sure doesn't work here. Actually, the whole plot is simply an excuse for tired old, limp-wristed gay stereotyping and jokes, such as this scene where the two cops, Ryan O'Neal, the straight one, John Hurt, the typically shy gay one, throw a housewarming party to try to get some new leads on the murders.
What the hell is going on here? Here he is at last. I just need some Oscars.
I think you could have waited a little while before you threw our first orgy.
This has nothing to do with me. They're neighbors. This is our housewarming party. They brought their own bottles, their own records, everything. I've been holding down the fort here for the past hour.
I don't know what you've been doing, but I haven't been wasting my time. See that blonde kid? He lived with the victim for 2 years, and he has not told the police everything either. Did he tell you he lived with Davis? Yes. You got him to talk. Well, that's pretty good. What else did he say?
Nothing. We were interrupted.
Well, you're onto something. Now, stay with him. Come on. Stop playing with those damn glasses. Go on, get out there.
No.
Why not? What's the matter, Kerwin?
Nothing.
Then go talk to him. Why the hell not?
Because he asked me to dance. refuse to dance with a man. I will dance with a man. No. Hey, let me go. Please, let me go.
Ask my pal to dance. He's dying to.
Dance? Dance?
No,
Just pathetic. The rest of Partners is pretty much the same, with plenty of shots of Ryan O'Neal wearing wild outfits, including leather jackets with chains. The murder plot is murky. The jokes are tired. Ryan O'Neal's character is a crashing bore. In fact, the only interesting element in this lousy movie is the curiosity of watching a fine actor like John Hurt, who you may recall starred in The Elephant Man, struggle to establish the worthiness of his character. Other than that, Partners is trash.
I'm pretty much in agreement with you on this one, in particular about John Hurt. He thought, I think, and he found in the material, and probably took the movie because he found that the notion of a gay cop and a straight cop becoming roommates was intriguing. You could develop this, even in a comedy. Ryan O'Neal, I think, sees it basically as a series of gags and one-liners and opportunities to look cute. And so the problem is the two performances are on totally different levels,
Right.
and if they're going like this, there's never the connection that makes a gag or makes a joke work. So it's not funny, and apart from that, it's not
Also,
any good
I
either.
think it's in bad taste. I mean, I must say, if we had these series of murders, why would you, want to make fun of that? I think that issue is never really dealt with. There's nobody in the movie that ever says, hey, wait a minute, somebody's dying here. The other thing is, Ryan O'Neal has become, for me, sort of a parody of himself. All he is doing, in the movie So Fine, his last comedy, he wore jeans with a plastic seat. In this movie, he dresses up in another series of costumes. I mean, is this what an actor is doing with his career?
He's kind of the adult Barbie and Ken of sex roles. In other words, you put a different costume on him in every movie, and you're supposed to laugh at how funny he looks.
Yeah, it's a very depressing film to sit through.
I agree with you. We come to another depressing film, but it's a good one. We come to one of the most frightening movies I've seen in a long time. It's called Christiane F, and it's from West Germany. It's based on the true story of a young teenage girl who started drinking and using drugs at the age of 13, became addicted to heroin at the age of 14, and was a prostitute before she was 15. Her story was told in a series of articles in a German news magazine. And now here comes the movie, which shows this process of self-destruction in painful and absolutely realistic detail. It's a powerful warning against the ridiculous notion that it's safe to just sort of experiment with heroin. It's not safe. In this scene, Christiane is in the movie room of a disco, a room the dopers use for dealing and using drugs, and she's angry at her boyfriend because she just found out that he's been using heroin.
Du, Axel, der Detlef will Age nehmen.
Klar, wenn Bock drauf hat.
Sag mal, hast du mich nicht richtig verstanden?
Du, wenn es nehmen will, dann nimmt das.
Mensch, kannst du nicht mal mit ihm reden?
Ausgerechnet ich, wa?
Was heißt ausgerechnet du? Ich denke, du bist sein Freund. Ich denke, der pennt bei dir.
Ganz cool bleiben, Mädchen. Nimm lieber auf was, bevor du ausflippst. Guck sie dir nur alle an. Je cooler sie sind, desto mehr haben sie gedrückt.
Detlef.
That's Natcha Brunkhorst playing Christiane. This is her first performance in a movie. She's very, very good. Later in the film, Christiane herself becomes addicted to heroin. She becomes a prostitute. The movie documents her disintegration in heartbreaking detail. This is a movie that makes a really powerful warning, and the interesting thing is, and I'm not sure this is a bad thing, The distributors are trying to attract a large teenage audience to this film by downplaying the anti-drug message and playing up the fact in their advertising that rock star David Bowie makes a brief appearance in the movie. He plays at a concert, and Christiane goes to hear him. They also want to get away from the fact that this is a German film. And so in most of the prints around the country, they've had it very badly dubbed. Now, in the scene that we just saw, we heard the original voices of the actors and actresses. They're just kids. But in the dub version, which is really bad, they're dubbed into mid-Atlantic kind of quasi-British accents of people who sound like adults and who use slang that's 15 years out of date. New World Pictures, which owns this film, should get their money back for the dubbing job. It's terrible. But the movie still works, even in the dub version, because of its absolute realism and the performance of that remarkable young actress. This is a film that's going to be very hard for me to forget.
I agree with you. And you know, when I was watching it, because this film has received some rave reviews in Europe where it already played, I felt cheated because I was seeing this dubbed, phony version. And I want to see the other version. But I can't penalize the filmmaker or the film. Despite this handicap, I think that this is a very important kind of movie. It goes this extra step in its portrayal of drug addiction and drug use. It shows needles going into young arms. Now, that can be, in the wrong hands of a bad filmmaker, trash, just trash, sensationalism. This is a good filmmaker, and what happens is, I think you just sit there, yes, that's the way it happened. This is documentary-like. This is what happens. They fall over, nod out, don't get very much pleasure. If any, it's for a second or two. It's the ritual, obviously, that they are attracted to, and they are on a conveyor belt to a very bad time, to suicide. And I think this is a striking film.
You know, a lot of kids go to movies like Reefer Madness, which plays at midnight, and you can laugh at all the G-men warning about how marijuana is going to enslave you and so forth. This movie is not just an educational do-good film. This movie is harrowing in its detail. It's shocking. It's the scenes in this film of these kids and what happens to them are profoundly depressing and absolutely convincing.
And when you see a picture like this, I don't know about you, but I always feel like this film is hooked on to an area of the world that I don't see, but I know is there. There's shots of kids hanging out by a railway station. A lot of kids. And I have a feeling this is going on in cities. It's just not in the neighborhood that I happen to live in. But this film, I think, is very accurate and fantastic. It's a shame that we're not being able to see it, I think, in its original version.
You're right.
Conan the Barbarian is the first of the summer's big new action pictures, a comic book-style fantasy, sword fights, with bodybuilder Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the title role, a barbarian angry at the world in general, and James Earl Jones in particular. He's a bad guy in a lot of films. He killed Conan's mother. In an effort to get back at Jones, Conan is joined by an Oriental martial arts expert and by a woman, a very strong, beautiful woman named Valeria, played by Broadway dancer Sandal Bergman. Here, the two men meet her for the first time.
You are not a guard.
Neither are you.
Thieves, like yourself, come to climb the tower.
You don't even have a rope. Two fools who laugh at death. Do you know what horrors lie beyond that wall?
No.
Then you go first.
Eventually, Conan the Barbarian and Valeria, the woman warrior, his equal in spirit, fall in love.
All my life I've been alone. Many times I face my death with no one to know. I would look into the huts and the tents of others in the coldest dark, and I would see figures holding each other in the night. But I always pass by. You and I, we have warmth. That's so hard to find in this world. Please, let someone else pass by in the night. Let us take the world by the throat and make it give us what we desire.
From humor to a little passion, this film has a lot, I think. Later in the film, all three joined forces, and wearing war paint, they raid James Earl Jones's castle where, what else? an orgy is going on. I think I could have done with a little less music. It sort of softens the appeal of what's going on. However, the appeal of this traditional revenge picture is that it has a good sense of humor, in addition to all of the traditional elements of sword fights, stampeding horses, strong, beautiful men and women fighting for good to triumph over evil. Conan the Barbarian certainly may be predictable, very few surprises, but its funny moments, I think, keep it all fresh. It's lighthearted, enjoyable, and a pretty good summer movie.
Now, on this one, I see the sense of humor. I did not think The Sword and the Sorcerer gave me too much to laugh about, but also in this one, what Conan does that made me like the film and recommend it is it puts Conan and Valeria into the foreground, and also the James Earl Jones character. Right. They become people, to a greater degree anyway than in other films like this. I would still like a little more complexity in their development, but we can identify with them. We get to know them a little bit. We think we know how they'll respond to a situation. They are not simply cardboard robots moving from one elaborate set to the next one.
I think that's true. You know, we talked once before about what makes good acting, and we quoted George C. Scott, who talked about the joy of performing quality that an actor can show, how they silently can give off the fact that they know this is fun and they're performing for you. I think Schwarzenegger does this. I think he's aware that his accent sounds totally out of place, even though he's some foreign-born...
But this movie takes place before American accents.
Apparently. And I think that also the woman character, Sandahl Bergman, also senses that she's sort of more than just a good friend. She's going to fight there, too. And I think it has a lot of fun to it in the performance.
You've made me think of something that I didn't really realize I was thinking of while I was watching the film, and that is one of the things I reacted to was the good health and good spirits of Sandahl Bergman and Arnold Schwarzenegger. They are so alive in this film that they bring energy to scenes that otherwise might have been totally routine.
Well, it's Sparky the Wonder Dog, of course, reminding us time to move on to the Dogs of the Week, the week's worst movies.
Well, my dog this week is called Beach Girls, and it's about 3 young women who are supposed to be teenagers in the movie. I guess they actually don't look too much over 25. One of them has an uncle who lets her use his house at the beach, and the girls decide to throw a party. To get a lot of guys to come to the party, they call it the pizza delivery man, the plumbers. Do you have a cute plumber you can send over? Even the diaper service. That's a girl. Well, that's okay. She joins the party, too, and before long, everybody's skinny dipping in the surf, making out in the sauna, and passing out in the living room. Now, you know how exciting this movie is? The big scene, the real suspense, is when the uncle who owns the house comes home, and he's not even mad. He's just disappointed that his niece let him down. Even he cheers up, and one of the niece's friends joins him in the sauna. I'll say this much for Beach Girls. It gave me a whole new appreciation for the talents of Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello in a masterpiece like Beach Blanket Bingo.
I think I have you topped this week. My dog this week is The Senior Snatch, one of the most improbably lousy movies I have ever seen. Senior Snatch is billed in advertisements as a high school sex comedy, you know, cheerleaders, all of that. But about 10 minutes into this ridiculous movie, you will be shocked when you see the action switch from the sands of Hawaii to, get this, 1808 Hawaii, where a voodoo figure is terrorizing the natives. We get about 20 minutes of this cornball, feather and drum and coconut garbage before the action switches back to a totally incongruous sex picture involving an assortment of co-eds climbing a small mountain to make love with a bearded old man. At the drive-in where I saw this picture in Hammond, Indiana, along with a very heavy makeout crowd, the film was so bad that cars started streaming out of the passion pit. And that has to be the ultimate film critique. A film so bad you can't ignore it and just have fun. Amazing.
I think you do have me topped this week. I think I'll go see Beach Girls again after that description. So much for the dogs. Now let's take another look at the main movies on this program. We split on The Sword and the Sorcerer, the colorful sword-fighting epic. We both thought it was a great-looking movie, but I thought the images overwhelmed the story, so Gene votes yes, but I vote no. And we both voted no on Partners, the lightweight, predictable comedy starring Ryan O'Neal and John Hurt as two undercover cops. We thought the movie didn't bring enough imagination to a promising situation. 2 yes votes for Christiane F, the heartbreakingly effective West German movie about drug addiction. We were both impressed by the uncompromising realism of the movie's portrait of teenagers gradually getting hooked on drugs. And 2 more yes votes for Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sandahl Bergman as mythical heroes from beyond the mists of time. We thought the movie's production and special effects looked great and did justice to the Conan legend.
Well, that's all for this week. Next week on Sneak Previews, we'll have an all-new selection of more of our buried treasures, movies we think that have been unfairly overlooked, like Go Tell the Spartans, starring Burt Lancaster, Over the Edge, about suburban teenage rebellion, and Swamp Thing, a movie that combines mad scientists with slime in the swamp. Until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Funding for Sneak Previews was provided by this station and by other public television stations.